The season started and everybody's worried about their DPS performance, but nobody's talking about how fun the DPS specs can be, of course, with performance, but also design, talent builds, hero talents, and all of that. And that is what we're gonna be doing today, right here, right now, starting with Frost Death Knight, which is a spec that I will put all the way into A tier, since it's been really fun to see Frost actually do really well once again in WoW, with the changes that it's gotten to the talents itself, kind of revitalizing the spec in a way where auto attacks and dual wielding and crits actually matter. Sure, it's getting nerfed, but it's probably always gonna have to be nerfed considering how much damage it's doing. And even the hero talents are just elevating the gameplay. Whether you play Deathbringer and you do these awesome sights left and right and just cleaving fools to death, or you go right off the apocalypse and you get the gang in and you just go deep all the way, Frost is a whole new pack of fun. It's not an S tier spec because I feel like in order for it to be S tier spec, something has to happen with Breath of Sindragosa to be elevated to 2024 level of gameplay. And you probably noticed this microphone I am recording the video with. Well, let me tell you about the SteelSeries Alias Pro gaming mic. This baby is a desk microphone with a shock absorbing mount for those intense gaming moments when things get heated. It being on a desk just makes it so much better to set up my real estate around it without figuring out a way to move the arm from my last streaming microphone to not obscure my monitor or just plainly being annoying. I'm a gamer at the end of the day, and between setting up a double stream with 2 OBS softwares, 2 video input sources on each, 3 audio ones, streaming alerts, and other chat options, I really, and I mean really, don't want any more complex sound issues to have to deal with. Alias Pro was made for me, bro. I just hook it in and literally did nothing in terms of compression, noise suppression, or other terms Marcelian told me to say since he's the sound engineer. It has an XLR microphone together with a built-in preamp directly into the stream mixer to make all of this magical quality a reality. Goddamn poet over here. And since we are SteelSeries fanboys with a bunch of other gear from them, having one central software to manage the Alias Pro together with the rest just makes things so much easier. Did I mention the 17 other tools I have to juggle when I want to stream? Wish all of the stuff was as simple to start as the Alias Pro. And to be fair, the sound quality does not disappoint. As quality geeks as we are very particular with our audio, and our content is proof of that. I'm telling you, check the link down below and use the code Marcelian to get 10% off of your Alias Pro purchase, because banger quality doesn't have to be complicated, dude. Not as complicated as Unholy Death Knight, which is actually a banger of a spec. Way better, of course, sorry about that, than Frost Death Knight, because it kind of has always been. Frost has a little bit to go before it can outpace the Unholiness. And although Sand Lane is not really doing it for me, it seems to be simming pretty high. Right of the Apocalypse just brings all the fantasy of a Death Knight that I've enjoyed since the Warcraft 2 days to this day. And whether you want to play a pet focus build, a disease build, a burst wound build, it's all there with the new talents and the rearrangements of the things. It just feels so much better. Not that I can say about Havoc, which is a little bit bland, to be fair. It's not a bad spec. I mean, in B tier, it's kind of like middle of the pack. It's neither good nor bad, it's fine. And fine is probably not really what you want when you want to sell a spec, at least not to me. Sure, the spec itself just plays really well. I actually like the fact that it's no longer a simple spec to grasp. Playing stuff like Essence Break builds actually really requires you to really pay attention and really match your windows properly, since the time frame is so short that if you miss it, you just lose a lot of damage. I kind of like that. The hero talents just don't do it for me. I don't really feel the vibe for it. Felscard is a cool fantasy, but I feel like I don't lean enough into the demon form as much. Sure, things exploding is really cool, but that's just glowy buttons on my screen at the moment. At least it rewards me when I press my buttons, so yay, I suppose. Balanced Druid is no bueno, D tier, I'm sorry. I know, by the way, I can make the disclaimer right now. This, what we're talking about right here, is not taking into account the changes that the classes will get in the anniversary event patch, which is going to be 2 months away. That's way too far. We're going to have a video about that once it gets to live, but until then, balance is a no-go. I don't like how it plays. I don't like that a lot of the damage is packed into Starfire and not into its spenders. They are working and changing that, and they are working and making balance a lot better, and to be fair, does look better in the anniversary patch, but until then, it's a D tier spec. Feral, fortunately rather, is not. It's actually way better. I'm gonna put it ahead of Havoc. Feral just plays incredible on its own, despite the hero talent. Despite the hero talents, Feral is just really fun. And I know that Druid of the Claw is doing some insane, crazy numbers right now with Ravage. Yay, that's great. I mean, that's nice because you have to do damage, but that's not enough. Druid of the Claw for me has a much heavier lore implication and much heavier flavor of the class implication that is now represented within the game, and it makes me feel like I'm a cheater. It makes me feel like I'm a thief, like I'm stealing the fantasy with nothing to show for it, because nothing's really happening with the Druid of the Claw. I'm never gonna go into bear form as a cat. No way, Jose. And Wild Stalker is just all too passive. There's an extra dot, and that's it. That's not enough. Devastation, however, is actually surprising me a lot. It's a really fun spec. I would normally put it in front of Death Knight if I just didn't dislike the concept of Draktyr so much, which goes a long way into making a spec fun for me, because I have to look at it. But in terms of playstyle, it's better than Frost Decay. Obviously, a lot of things go into the overall ranking of the specs. The numbers are actually really good. I love that no matter what hero talent you play, you're just really good, and I hope that's similar to Augmentation, which is going to be along down the line, that they bake these things into the Devastation spec, because it's pretty bland. It kind of reminds me of how Havoc was when it was introduced. It was pretty bare bones, and it relies on these external class representation systems to actually function. I really hope that they buff Firestorm for Flameshaper, or maybe for both, who knows, to not be a dead spec, man, a dead spell rather. It's crazy that ever since Dragonflight Beta, it has never seen play ever in almost 3 years. What's up with that? Give me that spell. Like, I already have so few spells. Why make one dead? Just buff it. I don't understand. Beast Mastery is also pretty poor, and unfortunately it suffers from the Hunter syndrome, where the Hunter hero talents are some of the worst in the game now, by the way, because I do know that they're going to be way better once the anniversary patch launches, and Dark Ranger is going to be and the Beast Mastery rework is going to be so good, man. So very close to S tier that I'm actually scared how good Dark Ranger in general, the Beast Mastery rework talents actually look at the moment. But until then, it's shit. Marksman is a little bit less shit. I'm gonna put it into C tier, because even though the hero talents are still pretty boring, Sentinel is a little bit less boring than the other two for Beastmaster. Beastmaster is kind of the loser, but it's still really fun to play with Explosive Shot, Salvo, Trick Shot, Cleave. All of that is actually really fun and engaging and very rewarding for marksmanship to see that spec explode on the meters, but that's where it kind of stops. Unfortunately, it doesn't go anywhere beyond that. I kind of wish I would feel like this insane marksman in single target to just like snipe things from afar, and it feels like Dark Ranger might actually make that happen with how good Black Arrow is going to be. But until then, C tier, baby. Survival is definitely a little bit better. I want to put it in front of Feral, in front of Havoc, but not really in front of Feral, because the spec rework just makes it a much better spec than Feral. The hero talents are still shit, but the rework is just an overflow of resources, procs, and charges that's a little bit too much. It's so much that I get lost. I don't know what to press. I don't know which one has to go next, and it's not very intuitive. I would have to read a guide and figure out a priority in my head and just like forcibly remember it, because it doesn't make sense for the spec. It's way too much, and they are actually fixing that in the anniversary patch, also making Survival a very close contender to an S tier spec. I don't know if I'm gonna switch to Hunter as my main in the next year, but it's looking like it's actually pulling my eyes towards it, and that says a lot for current Hunter, since I am a Mage fanboy. Oh my god, is Arcane fun. I'm kind of bummed that Spellslinger isn't the go-to, and you kind of want to play Sunfury. Sunfury is not bad. I like the Phoenix as much as the next guy, but Spellslinger with the procs of Splinter Storm, oh my god, it's a disco. And you'll play either one, because Arcane is just crushing it in the numbers. I don't know if Arcane is going to be nerfed or the other specs are going to be buffed, but it's clearly very far ahead of a lot of other specs, and the rework is just making it incredible. It doesn't have that build variety, which is why Fire is ahead. Despite what the naysayers and the flavor of the month callers in comments. I've always been said about our simping for mage, at least particularly mine, but I've loved fire since the day it was introduced because in its design and in its theory, it's still one of the best specs in the game, where you have multiple ways of dealing damage, single target burst, slight cleave, big AoE burst, upfront damage, long prolonged ramps, whatever you want, it has it. It's just unfortunately not properly tuned, and that still isn't putting me away from playing it. That's how much I enjoy the explosive frenzy of fire, where I hard cast a spell every minute or so. I love it, and it's going to be my top tier spec for the moment. Frost, not as much. I mean, Frost is, god damn it. Frost is cool. That was just a happy accident, by the way, but it's not literally at the same level. I love Mage as a whole. I think it's the class with some of the most, if not the most, skill expression, and I really resonate with that. But Frost is a little bit lower than the other two Mage specs. It's a little bit more boring, and unfortunately, it has gotten the least amount of reworks, and I think it probably needed some of the most amount, considering that it's pretty bland. It's kind of like how Frost DK used to be, where it's just the same spec. There's some weird things happening with Frost right now, where Glacial Spike is, what, a DPS loss to shoot in Icy Veins? I don't know if that's still a thing, but it was at one point, and that's weird, because it's Glacial Spike, and Death's Chill has been nerfed so much where it's a meme talent. I think you only take it in Delves or something. Besides that, it is the perfect spec for me to do world content with, to do delves with, to do world quests with, because it just works in difficult content. I don't have to rely on a big cooldown to actually kill stuff the way that Fire and Arcane do, so I just enjoy my time playing Frost, and I always feel like it's great to have that option to just swap to it. Windwalker has been incredible after its rework. I'm going to put it behind, or between rather, the two Death Knight specs, since I cannot really make up my mind if I like Windwalker more than Death Knight, and that was never a choice I ever had to make, because Death Knight always won in the end. But the rework is just crazy, and I've probably been falling in love with the Monk fantasy ever since I've played WoW Remix. I've gotten to know the flavor of the fantasy, rather, of the class with the Remix content and all the story of the Pandaren and all the things that they did. And the rework is just making it incredible. I love the fact that I could play with the Palpatine build or the 24 kicks and or the Zoo and focus builds. That is incredible. The hero talents are not doing that much, and that is unfortunately unfortunate. But besides that, Windwalker is just bee's knees, very close to topping Death Knight. If only that those hero talents could just do a little bit more, man, know what I'm saying? And those hero talents are actually doing a lot more for Ret Paladin, which will go in front of Frost Mage. It is more fun to play than Frost Mage. It's not quite an S tier, because if it was an S tier, I would probably be maining Paladin at the moment, but it does have some issues with Final Reckoning being a DPS loss overall behind execution sentence in dungeons, which is weird to think. They're actually probably very close in terms of performance, but you would have to sack a lot of single target to get an equal overall damage in AoE, which is not something that you really want in dungeons. The single target is very important, and just swapping one talent for that feels like it's what Reds are probably going to do if they want to optimize their performance, and I don't like to feel like that's the case. I want Final Reckoning to be the default choice for AoE and not, you know, be any doubts about it. And I'm still waiting for Divine Hammer to make an appearance in the actual playstyle and have my spinny hammers around me. Until then, the hero talents are bangers. They're not the best, but they're fun enough where Red is awesome, top of the A tier spec. Shadow Priest has been way more fun than I expected. I'm going to put it in front of Devastation because I never really liked the Shadow rework, and I still don't like it ever since they removed Mind Seer and ever since they removed Instant Mind Spike. But the fact that I can actually play without Mind Spike is so much fun, because Mind Flay and Mind Flay Insanity are some of my favorite things to do. They feel shadowy, okay? They feel like this really short channel, Mind Flay Insanity, doing so much damage feels right. Feels like what I should be doing for Shadow. Feels like what I would have wanted to do with Mind Shear. But until then, it's never gonna go higher than it already is, and it's already this high because Void Weaver is just everything you thought it would ever be. It is. That is Void Weaver. And Archon is not that bad either, considering that it lets me play without Mind Spike. I love Archon just for that. Assassination has been an incredible spec to play. I think I've loved it a little bit more than Frost Death Knight. I really like the fact that with Death Stalker, I actually feel like an assassin. I'm picking my target and I'm nuking that target to death. Because that's kind of how it works. It can be annoying with different types of targets becoming intargetable or going into stealth or whatever and vanishing, and I'm losing my mark, but actually playing that mark and juggling it properly feels very rewarding, and it can make a difference between a good assassination and an amazing assassination. That's the kind of stuff I like in my specs, and I've always liked the Assassination rework ever since Dragonflight. I've mained it because of that, and it has been fun since. Not as much Outlaw, unfortunately. I'm not a big fan of Killing Spree not doing more damage. I feel like the amount of things that Killing Spree implicates you in, as in almost potentially killing you if you're not really paying attention, I feel like it should do Giga Bomber damage, and it's not. It's doing okay. It's damage. You're obviously playing it, but it's not amazing. And the fact that I think, what is it, Trickster locks you out in your animation still. What the fuck? Still? I mean, I think they're fixing probably some bugs with Outlaw at the moment, but it's not enough, Chief. Not enough for me to love Outlaw again, and definitely not enough to love Outlaw as much as I love Subtlety, which I do more than, probably more than, I don't know if it's more than Windwalker. That's a very tough comparison to make because I love Deathstalker Subtlety. I don't know if it's more than Assassination, but it's getting there close. And the fact that with Trickster, even though it has the shit things that we talked about Outlaw, the fact that you have Nimble Flurry with Subtlety just feels so good, considering that the coolest things that Subtlety does is single target focused, because AoE you would probably just spam Black Powder and that's boring. The fact that you have Nimble Flurry and you can convert your single target to AoE the same way that Assassination does that with Caustic Spatter, I love that playstyle. I just love taking the single target and just funneling it into AoE. That's crazy. I love it. Elemental has been really fun after the reworks. I don't see it in front of Frost Mage, but I do see it in front of Death Knight. I think it's bringing Shaman to a really fun place where I could definitely see myself maining it. It's not there yet, considering that the Lightning build of Elemental is still not fully fleshed out, and you still have to play Fire talents because there's just not enough good Lightning talents to go around. And the rework, well, kind of rework, the changes that are happening to Elemental in the anniversary patch are making Ascendant actually work for both versions of Elemental, both the Fire and the Lightning one, and that's great because Ascendant is just Fire right now. I'm still waiting for something to happen to Echo of the Great Sunring. I don't know if it's gonna stay that way, but overall with the hero talents, I've never expected to see Shaman overall so high, because the other high spec is definitely Enhancement, and it is going into S tier. I've been surprised as to how much fun I've had with Enhancement, and the fact that it has so many build options to go with right now kind of makes me a little bit jealous that I picked Mage. Not too much, but a little bit, because I've always loved Enhancement. I've mained it over the years. It was my very first character that I've ever leveled to max and fell in love with. So the fact that Enhancement is doing so well is chef's kiss. We'll see how it progresses, because the anniversary patch is just looking way better for Enhancement. Affliction has been a really fun spec overall. I will put it just below Frost Death Knight, ahead of Shadow Priest. I like what they're doing with Affliction, with the hero talents. I feel like it's finally doing good damage, and that matters because Affliction has kind of been fun over the years, but it was never really tuned properly, and it has some icky things in its rotation and playstyle, and now those icky things seem to be going away. I'm still a little bit upset that we lost Seed Spam. That was way fun to do damage in AoE, but I guess they've changed that to make the hero talents actually work, because I don't see any other reasonable explanation as to why we lost Seed Spam. But with that out of the way, it's fun, and that's all that matters, and it's doing damage. Demonology is also pretty fun, but I cannot see it as high as Affliction, rather. I'm salty about the things that Demonology lost, although the things that it did get were actually good. I'm not still sold on the new Doom. I feel like either the tier set or the initial alpha version of Doom or early beta version of Doom were way more fun, even though they were a little bit degenerate. They were more fun. I don't know what to tell you. I enjoyed it so much more than what Demonology is right now, and it feels like Demonology right now is pretty bland compared to what it could be, and I cannot really overlook that. And even with that, it's still an A tier spec. Warlock, I'll always love it. Destruction is very close. I feel like Destruction plays slightly better than Demonology, but it didn't really get as many cool wow things. Even though its talent rework might have been the biggest, it still feels like you're doing the same thing. It still feels like I have to choose between Inferno and Cataclysm, and that feels kind of bad. I don't know if they ever fixed Dimensional Rift to actually be good to press, and they clearly want that fantasy to be incorporated into Destruction, but it's not looking like they're actually playing into it hard enough. I think they should definitely play harder into it. But I like the new Destruction. I just don't see it as high as the other specs. And even it's still an A tier. More than I can say about Arms. I'll put Arms in front of the other D tier specs because War is always going to have a strong place in my heart. But I don't vibe at all with the Arms changes that happen in the War Within. I'm not a fan of the Blade Master Stormwind change. I'm not a fan of the Warlord Stormwind change. I'm not a fan of the Overpower change. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Whenever I play arms, it feels wrong. It feels like this is not the warrior that I loved, and that's just a shame because that's not something that I ever wanted to feel from arms. Which is not what I'm getting from Fury. Hey, yo, dude, oh my god, I have enjoyed. I don't even know if I should put Fury in front or behind Ret right now. I have never expected Fury to actually revitalize my love into Warrior, because I thought Warrior was dead to me forever in the War Within. But Fury Slayer is what changed my mind. I feel like that's how Arm Slayer should feel like. Giga Bladestorms, Giga Executes. They're probably hitting harder on arms, they just don't feel amazing to press. Not as amazing as Fury feels. Fury feels incredible right now. I don't believe how fun it is. I still cannot believe it. I don't want to accept it because it's just incredible. Such a big stark contrast to arms when historically these two specs have been very close to me in terms of how much fun I found them in. And last but not least, Augmentation is going to be bottom of the A tier, not B tier, because it actually plays really well despite it being an Evoker. The hero talents are actually elevating the spec to a point where I feel like if those hero talents are not made baseline somehow, whenever we get rid of them or move on from them, I feels like Augmentation is just not going to survive. That just makes the Augmentation spec feel so much better. Now, in terms of the actual feel of the gameplay, being able to buff people, that's a very hard concept to grasp because unless we're doing high-end game content as a main Augmentation, I really cannot really put my finger on that to see how much I love it. It feels like it's better than in Dragonflight when you can see the buffs of people with the new passive that you have, but it's still really high up for it being an Evoker, which normally these would be fairly low because the aesthetics and the fantasy of the spec, or class rather, do a lot for me, and they don't do a lot for Evoker, but the gameplay is just really good overall. And you can have a lot of fun with any of these specs in the Season 1 that just started, and if you don't know what to do in Season 1, luckily for you, we already have a video on that goes into all of the topics, all of the things that you can do in the Season 1 that we believe are the best things to do to be efficient in your process, in chasing all that gear and all that dungeon and raid content. Right here, check it out. It is made for you.